Well, here I am early in the morning, about 7:30, just having been dropped off from the bus from Carlisle. I'm at Bonus on Solway, and the Solway, I think, is this expanse of flats that can fill up with the tide later today, and is where the Scots came across and they were defending against them. An old house fallen into disrepair, understatement, but some pretty flowers. Wonder if the owner would have appreciated those flowers in the early days, if they're remnants of that past. Anyway, it's kind of boggy here, so I have to be careful. Kind of a pretty view from underneath this protective oak tree. A whole different way of life has gone on here than I'm familiar with. This tall wall out of red sandstone reflects the danger of the tides, reflecting the height of the tide, although spring tide apparently is the only tide that would get up on the top of that. And now the tides are much more sedate, apparently, so I'm told not much to be afraid of now. So there you can see where we are, where I are, and the bus driver dropped me off, I think, right over here, and I've walked around and then come up off the beach here because it's fenced from here on now down to the north here, if you will, or I should say to the east, and all the rest of this heavily tided. So I guess I walk all along here. My bus driver this morning told me that buses can occasionally get on the road when the tide's in, and that gets a bit dicey for them, although the sign seems to suggest the water doesn't get more than 2 feet to a foot higher on that road. It was also interesting that his dad was in Jackson Hole some time ago and has a hat that he wears continuously from Jackson Hole. Even here alongside the road, hidden beneath that vegetation, is a wall probably 4 feet high of that red sandstone. And there in the distance, a hint that somewhere in the world the sun shines. The view back to Bonus on Solway. There goes my bus driver friend, who also is a decorator. By that I think he means a painter of houses inside and out. I'm always intrigued by big old houses like this one, sitting all by itself on this round portion of the shoreline, wondering what the history of the people was who lived here over time. The bus driver commented that he and his sons were down here one time and decided they would test the speed of the incoming tide and learned they had to run to outpace it. This sign indicates that maximum 2 feet depth here when the tide's in, but I'm standing on a rise. So beyond me just a little bit further, it's going to be, I would think, even deeper. I suspect that this is one of the major enterprises of this area. Interesting what those letters mean. And these posts are also meant to indicate the depth of the tide when it's in. And I now enter the little village of Port Carlisle that at one time apparently thought it was destined to be a significant port, but alas, that never materialized. I actually wonder how that could happen without a phenomenal investment in dredging of this, whatever you call a Solway or whatever it's called, for quite some distance to get to open water. There's that house that we saw before. Here's the little Solway Methodist Church, built in 1861. Interesting. I wonder what reflections, if any, they had on the beginnings of our Civil War. And notice what I think are devices for keeping the building from falling apart. So here's a public footpath. Let's see if it travels along this area, or if it's designed to just take us down to water's edge. Nope, looks like there's a path here. Lovely little path with brief exposure of the Solway. Imagine that when it's flooded in, but how flat it is in the interim. Has to be a bit of British humor, don't you think? Gracie May slept here in 2010. Does that mean for the entire year? Did she sleep nestled in amongst these branches of this tree? Looking back down the route that I've taken on this tidal flat, looks like a little island that's still some headland that remains exposed. Looks like there might have been a structure on there. That boat beached, if you will, intentionally, I'm sure. I hear quite a number of birds out there. And then just below us, some kind of structure that was designed as a deck at one time. It looks like, unless that's the wall fallen over on its side, and that could well be. Although it doesn't appear to be, since that part there hooks around that part of the vertical wall. It's interesting that a life preserver accompanies this sign. You wonder if it's just appropriate, or whether they actually intend to use it. There's a substantial rope attached to it, so my guess is they intend to use it. These benches are lovely places for people to sit and contemplate, to relax. I'm tempted to walk along here, but it just looks too solid. Okay, I'm now looking back the way I was supposed to have come, but didn't read the map. So I didn't. I think this little acorn also represents that it's either a public pathway or it's actually a marker for Hadrian's wall path. But at any rate, what I was supposed to have done was right in the upper left-hand corner. When I walked by that holiday park, I was supposed to hang a right. And I saw that spot, but had not looked at the map and considered it. Anyway, so we're looking down this long area from where it says public phone. We're about a quarter of a mile down past that little jog towards the upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to walk down here. So this is supposed to be the pathway of the Roman Vallum, V-A-L-L-U-M, or Valium, however you pronounce it. I always thought that was a ditch that paralleled the enemy side of the defensive wall. But I don't see any evidence of this here, unless I'm missing the point, which is quite possible. And since I have the benefit of a sign that says Hadrian's wall path, I will follow it this time. And we're now leaving the small town of Glasson. This apparently is how the net fishermen, and there's a special name for them, get access. That being Mill Road on the left, and here a sign for Hadrian's Wall. We'll continue on a pathway down through here. And this, I think, is referred to as a kissing gate, I believe. And this is all very soggy. So we're now walking towards the north, at least as the camera's orientated, not really north. And we're going up there, and we'll hang a little bit to the right, and then we get off on that other. Here we're at that end of that little jog off to the right. Here are two of the three gates they seem to allude to, and here's perhaps the third one. And here we're facing right down a pathway. The paving stones for the wet area, though it's not the wettest area. I'll pan around A little look at the landscape. Doesn't look much different than parts of much of the U.S. At this intersection, the trail goes to Drumburg Moss National Nature Reserve, I think it would be called, and I go left to continue to Drumburg on Hadrian's Wall path this way. That being the intersection I just left, and walking down this long expanse of nice road, dry. It's a wide swath of space. Whether that's indicative of the size of Hadrian's Wall here, plus the volume and anything else associated with it, I don't really know. But up here we jog a little left and into the town of Drumburg, which originally housed a small defensive fort. This house, which is for sale, shows a sign of 1720 AD in the little town of Drumburg.